This is going to be a quick, simple video. The topic is relatively easy to understand and not exactly groundbreaking, but I wanted to go over it anyway. So today I'll be going over the positives and negatives of playing the center of the circle in PUBG. So near PUBG's competitive genesis, teams often used to classify themselves as edge teams or center teams, and this would usually indicate what type of position they would generally seek to take in the first and sometimes successive circles. But as the meta developed, while this still exists, it's to a much smaller degree, and teams generally just try to go for what is best in each circle, depending on whatever that would be for where they loot. And the major benefit that is immediately understood as to why a team would want to play center is simple. It has the greatest chance of being closest to the center of the next circle. So over time, playing center will yield you more and more successive circle feeds than playing the edge. A slightly more complex benefit is that playing the center will often allow you to the most scouting opportunities of positions around you. So being able to take information you learned from your central position can help immensely with second circle relocating, pathing, and overall decision making. This works best when combined with a high ground advantage. In the early game, the only negative aspect of playing the center of the circle can be that eventually you will have games where you get shot out of vehicles on rotation, or get crashed by another team at your compound, or otherwise run into players where you don't want to. This can be a major setback towards eventually trying to win the game, especially if players go down, or you might even lose your entire squad. But with how much space is given in the first circle, it doesn't usually end up being too much of an issue if a team plays their rotations correctly and scouts properly. As the game progresses, the benefit of the center of the circle turns from one of advantage in rotational position to one of team fighting position. Being in the center in the mid to late game means having the most knowledge of your surroundings and the means to pick off people who need to run in to the circle from the edge, as the primary advantage of being inside the circle versus the outside. And this is almost universally true in all except perhaps one case. So potentially the biggest disadvantage of playing in the center of the circle comes during the late game, often in one of the final few circles, when a team is in the center of the circle, but without adequate cover. So remember that playing the center of the circle intrinsically means that you will be surrounded, and there's a reason that not being surrounded is one of the most fundamental rules of military strategy. It's really hard to defend against an attack coming from all sides. In PUBG, it's very doable with moderate amounts of cover, but the situation can very quickly deteriorate without enough cover to fight enemies once you have to fight them all by way of the circle closing in on them. For example, take a circle like this. Assuming that a team was holding red position before the new circle, what should they do? They are in the center, but that position is vulnerable from multiple sides. It's not a good position to try to fight it out from, yet they are in the center. Should they move to a side and try to take an edge position? It seems counterintuitive, but depending on the information that they have, it could end up being a good play. If they have plenty of UAS cover, they may also choose to hold that spot. But realistically, pushing to take an edge position might not be possible in this scenario. In fact, I imagine that most often it won't be. In this case, even though the circle fell on top of them, I would argue that they got poor circle luck rather than good. But of course, at the end of the day, it all comes down to how many shots those players hit and whether they're able to play out the rest of the game better than their opponents. Thank you guys for watching. For my next video, I'm planning on doing a really interesting collaboration with another really good PUBG analyst, and it's going to be a bit more in-depth and high level, so definitely keep an eye out for that. See you next time.